Hello, everyone, and as always, welcome back to Strategy Gaming Dojo, where we find, learn, and play one more turn of the great strategy games. Today, back into Gary Grigsby's War in the Pacific Admirals Edition. This is our Let's Play by email with the devilish Mr. Laudric. And last turn, we had the disaster at Suva. Nobody has been relieved of command. It's like the modern U.S. military. Um, we then went around, we kind of talked about what to put on islands, or at least what I like to put on islands. Stanley had a question, well, what ships do you put them on? um it's a hard one to answer, Stanley, because it just kind of depends the situation you're in. Now, I like to try to get all my transports into LA, San Francisco, Pearl Harbor. Um, that's where I have all of my transports for the most part. On the American side, right? On the British side, you're talking Aden, maybe a few at Cape Town, just depending on what early on you get a few more things at Cape Town. And then after that, it almost all comes into Aden. So I like to have some there. I like to have a few at Bombay, just in case we need to take something random somewhere. And then I take the transport that has the least amount of cargo required to take that unit. Okay, so speed could also have something to play in it. So if you need something to get somewhere fast, of course, pick the fastest transport. Then what do I put with it? Well, it's much like my cargo and tanker task forces. I like to put, three escort vessels. That can be a destroyer mine layer, a destroyer mine sweeper, or it could be three destroyers, or it could be some combination thereof. I like to have three with every task. I find that when you have three, you don't often lose ships, and if you do, it's just kind of blind luck that you're going to lose one every once in a while. If you run into a Japanese sub, you just are. But I feel like when you have three escorts, usually you have pretty good protection. And you could see out in Pearl Harbor, or that lane from LA to Pearl Harbor, I'm running, even the big tanker task forces with three escorts, and we haven't had a problem yet, even though he's got a million submarines out there. So that's my, what else would you send with them? Well, I don't know. If you're going to get a lot of air flak, it's possible you may want to send something with anti-air, but really, I don't like to send out cruisers, light cruisers, battleships without carrier protection. And early in the game as the Allies, you don't really have much carrier protection. Now, when it comes to the Canadians and the British, those KVs, I look at them, just like the American minesweepers, destroyer minesweepers anyway, in the sense that those have a good 4 ASW, and I'll put three of those in with any Canadian or British ship. The British obviously also have destroyers, so you can kind of mix and match there. But anyway, this is going to be our combat resolution for January 18th and 19th of 1942. Um, we'll see what happens. Now, we've still got men in the water essentially south of Suva. We've fished a lot of them out, but now they're on damaged transports that probably aren't going much further. But let's see what the devilish Mr. Lodrick had in store for us this time. Oh, it had also come up. I wanted to mention this. Stanley had pointed out as well that, hey, you've got these what I'll call HQS, headquarters squadron planes. They're air squadrons, right? And they usually only have two or four planes in them. And I had actually put one on a transport. That's just me being a little rusty with the game, because it does take up a transport, and it's only for two or four planes. Well, hold on. Let's see what's going on. We have a little AKL here that was trying to get out of Suva to get away from the big monster task force there. It gets hit by a submarine because his submarines actually have decent torpedoes at the start. And the AKL Manipa looks like it's going to go down. It's got heavy damage. That's a 1 or 2 point ship, and there it goes down. So we lose yet another cargo ship. Hey, the Trusty! All right, the SS Trusty is out here. That was our very first British submarine, really, that we received. I've put it down here right in front of Rangoon. He seems to like to run these battleship task forces, cruiser task forces into our ports. He knows we don't have any air support right now. We don't have any torpedo bombers out here. So I've got the Trusty here. He's found it with a destroyer. Of course he did. Now, we take 3 hits. Now, I can tell you, I've already looked at the file after this. The Trusty didn't really take much damage. It got jarred about a little bit. The guys on board had to change their drawers as those depth charges came down. But 3 hits, it looks bad, but the Trusty's fine. It's actually, I've sent it back over to Colombo just to get patched up. All right, we've got another attack here by a Japanese sub. This was a 2-ship task force, and so he's already knocked out the first AKL, and now he's going to knock out the second one. Maybe shell hits 5. We don't show heavy damage or fire, so it's possible that survives. I just don't remember. Again, it's like a 1 or 2 point ship. That we took the risk. We knew what the risk was running into Suva, but you got to get as much supply up there as you can so the Japanese can't just starve Suva out. So, we're going to lose some 1 or 2 point cargo ships trying to get up into Suva. I'm going to keep doing it over and over. And I really don't run much escort with them because I don't want to lose the escorts. If we lose the 1 point cargo ships, it's not great. I don't want to, but it's not fatal. We don't want to lose too many destroyers, things like that, just trying to run up and do submarine interference around Suva. Now, I do have submarines ourselves around Suva, but our submarines are terrible, so we'll see. All right, this is our destroyer group here. The Jarvis, the destroyer Jarvis, is out here all over a Japanese sub, the SSI 175. Nothing really happened there. Looks like he dropped. No, the I-75 launched 2 torpedoes at us, so it was a sub attack. Always kind of look at this as it could be one or the other, right? It's a sub attack or an ASW attack. A sub attack means he got the jump on us. He got 2 torpedoes off. We searched around for him and said, huh? What? Where? We didn't find him. So too bad because we had 4 destroyers in that group. They're only level 2 ASW though, so that's not really very good. Okay, he spotted the President Buchanan and the AD Dixie. That means they're probably not long for the world. Okay, we're getting our Coast Watcher reports on in here. They're notoriously bad, but this one's correct. We've spotted 9 Japanese ships there. That is the Carrier Task Force. Okay, now we start the Chinese bombing, the portion of the program you've been waiting for, watching our troops get devastated by Japanese bombing here. 76 casualties reported from 9 Nells. That's a pretty good result for him. Then he has 21 Lilies coming in, try to finish off the job. 92 casualties, we damage 1 plane. Those aren't very good results for us. All right, 29 Anns, 21 Sallies coming in. 119 casualties, no planes lost. 17 casualties reported here on 6 Anns coming in. Now, one thing, I asked everybody, please don't give me any spoilers or whatever. I'm not watching Lodric stuff at all. 100% promise. I I don't want to know. It's a lot more fun game for me to just be completely surprised when things happen. And you can tell by the way things have been happening. That's got to be true. If I knew what he was doing, we'd have to question me. Um, but somebody had said in the comments that Lodric, and I don't think this is a spoiler, I think it's good information, is doing a great job of rotating in his best planes and his best pilots onto the front. So, that's how you want to do it. It's kind of a cycle. And we can talk more about pilot training as the episodes go on, but he's, training his pilots in the back. Now, one thing about him bombing so extensively in China is that makes his pilots even better because every time they do these missions, they grow up in experience and in their skill craft. So, it's got a double benefit, really. 17 casualties here. But anyway, one of the commenters said that, he's doing a great job of getting his best pilots to the front. And you can tell that he's just not losing very many planes. And he's wreaking havoc here. 412 casualties on that bombing run. Now, it was a lot. I mean, he had 55 bombers in that group. But we just don't have air cover here and there's not a whole lot we can do about it. The Chinese start off with very few I-15s and 16s as he sweeps over Changsha. Um, they start off, with just not many, and they're not good. And so you try to get one squadron of Flying Tigers over here, maybe, which I have done, but they are even getting ripped up a little bit because uh, the Japanese pilots are just better flat out, and he can also run a lot of unescorted missions. Okay, this is the final finishing off of what's been called the Suva disaster. AK Idaho, President Buchanan, so he had 24 zeros, 16 valves. He escorted him in. The Idaho took a bomb hit, heavy damage. The Dixie took 3 bomb hits and was sunk. And the President Buchanan, which had the rest of the 34th on it, 34th Infantry, took heavy damage, and that will go down as well. So our pain is over. Unfortunately, we lost a lot of pixel men out there, and we lost some good ships. Again, we got a lot more of both, but it's a lot of points, and this game is almost certainly going to come down to points unless we put a blitzkrieg on in 1944. So, and we will, or we'll try to. But he's going to have a lot of good pilot. We're not destroying enough or killing enough pilots. He's going to have a really strong defense, obviously. And there was a reason the Americans dropped an atomic bomb. It's we don't want to get in a position where we've got to launch a full-scale invasion of the home islands to win the game. We would like to be comfortably ahead in points by then, but it's gonna be tight. Yan'an. Okay, we got one of the Flying Tigers up. I have some in Yan'an, and I have some down by Chengchao. Chengchao? No, Changsha. The kind of the main city in the center. All right, so we got one Flying Tiger up. Doesn't look like he did anything to the zeros. Let's see if he survived. He did, so it was 9 on 1. Usually don't like those odds unless I'm in Vegas, but we survived. We get one I-15 up here. Now we do have I-15s in Cyan and up in Lanchao, so the few Chinese aircraft that we have that are not great, but they get up in the air, 9 on 1 there, and we don't lose that plane either. All right, now he's going to bomb directly into Suva and see what happens there. He hits the airbase and he hits the runway. Now, this is a real problem if he takes out the runway at Suva. We've got to try to get fighters there. And I have to say, that's a little bit on me. Usually, the very first place I would go put fighters is Suva. We didn't get them there before he got here with carriers, and now we've got a real problem. How do we get them there? Well, we can fly them from Australia out to someplace like no, we could skip them over to Nomaya and then to Suva, or we can bring them into either Penryn or Pago and skip them over to Suva. And I'll show you when we do the setup this time what I'm talking about, because we're going to have to do that from one of the directions and get fighters here to protect the runway at Suva. It's really hard to hold. Now, luckily, you've got 2 decent bases out here. It's not just Suva itself. You've got Nadi, which is a very it's not as good as Suva, but it's usable. And as you can see, he's hitting the runway there. 2 places where you have to try to protect the runway as fast as you can are Port Moresby and Suva. Because if you lose the runways there, they're very hard to defend because he can just bring his carriers in and you've got no air support and he can bomb the living crud out of you. All right, so he's bombing out here. We take 35 casualties. He takes 4 damaged planes. 19 Marys, 19 Idas. This is the group trying to get out of here, trying to get him across the river, but they keep getting interdicted here by his bombing. 105 casualties reported there. They're going to get bombed again. 2 damaged planes, 33 casualties. If either of those planes went down, I guess it's a fair trade. All right, he's bombing again. I've got these groups out here that were originally tasked with protecting Nanyang. They've gotten kicked out, or I'm running one way or the other. I'm trying to get most of them back to Aichang. This is the linchpin of your defense here at Aichang. That's why on any setup spreadsheet or whatever else, the very first thing you do is take like all 6 or 8 or 10 of these units that are here and directly take Aichang, because as you can see, it is the gateway up to the plateau here, that is you've got to hold at all costs. I will say in China, I'm pretty much pulling everything back. Against a bad or mediocre player, you can usually kind of hold the front line where it is. Against a good player like Lodric here, he's going to take Cyan shortly. At least it looks that way. Um, we've got to start pulling back into the truly defensible areas and then try to get that to a complete standstill, stalemate. You've got to try to get to that point in China. And against a good player, I mean, he came for Nanyang very quickly, which surprised me. I've never quite seen anybody do that. It's a great plan. And the next time I play the Japanese, I'm going to go for Nanyang. But now that he's got it, it's caused us all kinds of problems. We're pulling out of Chengchao and Loyang. Okay, this was a battle, a ground battle here. What was this? Just a bombardment attack. So it wasn't really battle. He just bombarded with his artillery. We took 51 casualties. He took 13. He's trying to soften us up a little bit. Okay, he's landed here on Celebus. He's trying to take this base, and he does. What is that? Lowak, Lowiek, I don't know. I'm not from there. But he takes this base. He takes no casualties in doing it. We had nothing there. Now he's into Bobo, and I'd just like to say Bobo. He's got a Marine force out here, 16 assault strength, but he needs nothing really. We have nothing there. So now he really has taken the north end of Papua New Guinea, and will continue to move down, and then it all comes down to Ley and Moresby. Ley he'll take quite easily, I think, but then we'll put up as much of a defense of Moresby as we can. Now you can see we're into the expanding fortifications phase, which means we're coming to the end of this day anyway, day one of the turn. We'll start to see what things arrive here next. I always want to pay attention here because you don't want anything sitting. We need every bit of help we can get at this point. And we need planes. We need planes and good pilots, especially the British. We've got to get planes down to Calcutta, to Colombo, and Madras. Those three especially. If we can get any more planes over to Rangoon, that would be helpful as well. All right, we got an AK there. We get a, oh, interesting. Okay, we got a fighter group. They're into Auckland. That helps. We're getting all of third bomber group in there on the eastern U.S. You can see another group of it there. Sixth Australian Cavalry arrives in Aden. Like I said, that's where you get almost all British and Australian units come into Aden. So make sure you just have a cadre of transports up there. You can take them to Karachi and dump them off there, and then figure out how to get them other places. But you got to have the transports at Aden to even get them to Karachi. And that when we talk about composition again, I just try to find the transport. If speed, the difference between a 16 speed and a 12 speed's not enough to maybe really change my mind unless I'm going west coast to Australia. Okay, we've got a Japanese sub out here now. We've got the DD Craven that appears to have been hurt by something. Now, it didn't get hit here, so it must have taken some kind of damage before. I'm trying to think with the Craven. That may have been a turn or two ago. I can tell you it doesn't sink. I know that, but interesting. Okay, well, it launched two torpedoes. It missed the Craven this time, but the Craven's taken a little bit of damage out there. That could have just been rough seas or something, because I don't remember the Craven being hit. But we've got a lot of destroyers out in that area looking for his subs. Unfortunately, his subs are finding us. That's that's not really how this is supposed to work. But his subs early in the game are strong units certainly. And we got to try to bust up as many of them as we can. We have destroyed a few, I believe. I don't know. It's hard to tell with Fog of War. He's unloading on Tarawa, which is kind of the first place that the Japanese start to go when they start to expand southeast. Um, he may get down into Canton Island soon enough. We'll see. All right, he's unloading at Tarawa. It's the most obvious place for him to go first. It's a decent base. Guam is also one that he'll take here eventually. There's just really nothing much you can do about it. We're seeing an enemy surface. Now, one thing to always really watch for is this part of the operations when you see that your task forces are retreating from surface combat, because sometimes your recon won't pick up those ships and now you can see we're being shadowed by fighters there. Sometimes uh, your ships and your air won't see these task forces, but you can just tell because by operation of the game, your task forces try to avoid those stronger forces. And so if they see, a big battleship task force, let's say, coming in, they're not going to go into that hex. And you can see that as they move at the start of the turn. We're on January 19th now. It's turn cycle 2 of 2. We did get a couple of planes in the air there. He's doing sweeps out over the Changsha area where you've got this cluster of 4 bases. We got nothing up in the air. He's doing a sweep over Cyan. Okay, nothing much happened there. We've got so few planes up there now that we don't always make it up into cap, which isn't necessarily the worst thing because we're getting blown out of the sky up there. 9 casualties here on a bombing run. This is the Pakao group that's been trying to get out of here forever. 16 ANs hit them again, 17 casualties there. Now he's bombing into the southeastern quadrant, and we take 26 casualties. Got a fighter bomber sighted there. All right, 25 Sonyas in on this group that's trying to get the heck out of here. It's essentially surrounded, and I'm just trying to thread the needle to get these guys out. It's about 600 in AV. Now, we did damage 3 planes on that bombing run. I'm not sure. I kind of escaped through that too fast. Here he's got, 30 or so bombers, 49 casualties reported there. 15 IDAs in here to the east of Kukong. And again, 6 more lilies into the east of Kukong. This is another unit I'm trying to get out and consolidate back in this kind of crescent. 6 lilies in. He took no losses. We took minimal casualties. 6 Tojos over Changsha. We get none of the flying tigers up, which is good. I'd rather they not go up during the sweeps anyway, and just wait for sit and wait for the bombers. He's snooping around Palembang. That'll be an upcoming battle in the next month or so. 25 Sonyas, 27 casualties. He's kind of flying over Aichang a little bit. I think that's the next place he wants to let Hell and Fury loose on. We do have quite a bit of AA at Aichang just because we've got a lot of units there, so some of them have natural AA. 12 ANs, Okay. Carrier group, as you can see, it's Death Starring its way through here. We had one little AKL, remember that Tamara had actually not sunk yet, and so he's going to go ahead and just finish off the Tamara. Bomb hits 4, and that's sunk. So, out of this group, or if we don't take, well, let's not do that. We lost all of that group, the Suva task force group, right? And then we had 3 cargo ships that were sitting up here. Luckily, they were all 1 point cargo ships. We've now lost them, 1 or 2 point cargo ships. We've now lost all 3 of those, which, once the carrier showed up, that was a fait accompli. Um, okay. Now, we don't have too much out there left, fingers crossed, for the carriers to destroy. I've really been avoiding that area the minute we saw, carriers. And you've got to, as the allies early on, you got to get the heck out. Okay, you can see he's got a task force coming down the coast. We'll have to see exactly what that task force is. I don't think it's got any carriers in it to the, best we can tell. Now we've spotted aircraft, but I think they're recon aircraft. 13 zeros did a sweep there. I think they're recon aircraft off of cruisers or battleships or light cruisers. 14 Lilies in here. We take 43 casualties. Gosh, this bombing campaign is something. 17 and 15 there, 131 casualties. 9 Idas in here. 25 casualties. It's just relentless. The Allied fire bombers over in Europe are looking at this longingly. 6 in there, we took a few casualties. All right, he's starting to probe around the Rangoon area again. I doubt he's got a torpedo bomber up there. That must have been a miss ID. It looks like the Stingray is going to go down. That's what it just showed there a second ago. The Stingray is one of those subs that was caught at Manila and has been limping back to Pearl Harbor. Now, a few of those made it back. We've had 2 or 3 that have sunk on their way back. We've had 2 or 3 that have made it back. I think the Stingray is the last one. All right, he's attacking into this group that he's just bombed the crud out of. I'm sure we're going to eventually have to retreat here, but you'll see here with the damage, right? His adjusted assault value. So he's got 54,000 troops. We've got 26,000, right? But he's outgunning us. He's got 184 vehicles. We have 0. When it all plays out, 1746, 447. As you can see, it's only a bombardment attack. Well, actually, that's a good thing for us, right? He takes 6 casualties. I don't know, one of the artillery pieces backfired or something. We took 12. Okay, let's get out. I'm trying to get out of there. So if he's not going to deliberate attack, that's a good thing. If he just bombards, he's now taken Tarawa as he's going to start his march southeast, south and southeast. Okay, now we're expanding our different things here. Fairly quiet turn. That we had the aftermath of the disaster at Suva. We lost 3 cargo ships. We found out we have a destroyer east of Pearl Harbor that's taken some damage. We'll have to check that out. And that's, again, I don't remember the Craven being hit at all, so we'll have to go check that out. He's also got ships coming down the western coast of Australia towards Perth. We saw those this turn, and we've also had task forces that are trying to avoid them or evade them from a combat perspective. So we'll have to figure out what that is. If it's not carriers and it's, let's say, battleships or cruisers, etc., we may take a shot at those as they get down by Perth because we can't afford to have the port at Perth closed off. So we're going to have to bunch up what cruisers, light cruisers that we have in Australia, and maybe try to get over there and at least bloody their nose a little bit. All right, you can see the rest of 3rd Bomber Group showed up on the East Coast. Hey, we get some more fighters in Australia. That's a good thing, of course. We had a new corps, Chinese corps, show up at Chongqing, which is good because I've moved a lot of things out of the reserve, the strategic reserve in China since we're getting torn up. Moved them down to Aichang and also moved them down to the south. And so Chungking actually doesn't have a lot of assault value right now. Usually that'll be sitting well over 1,000. I think we're below it. So we get a new core there. We'll have to go check that out as well. But anyway, this has been January 18th and 19th. When we come back, we're going to be on January 20th and we'll do our setup. We'll just do a high level kind of look around the map this time so we can all orient where are we, what's going on. This was a fairly positive turn for us. Let's forget about the Battle of Suvo. Got to put that in the rearview mirror. Other than that, we lost about 3 cargo ships, so that's not going to be a problem. We've got to keep moving things out in the Pacific. We need help in India. We're moving Australian troops there. We need help in Australia. We're moving American troops there. We need to get out to the island Suva, Nomaya, Pago. We're building up Tahiti and Haiva Oa in the background to help supply those things. But anyway, when we come back, we'll talk about all that. This has been Strategy Gaming Dojo. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a good one.